John, treason laws dating back to 1351. How could they possibly be relevant to today?
Well, they're not, are they? But what you have to do is update them. Clearly, anybody who leaves Huddersfield, Luton, Birmingham or my home city of Coventry to join Islamic State and fight our soldiers, they're a traitor. It's treasonable. Everybody in this country thinks that. So if we've got to update the law so we can actually nick them on the way back, that's a good idea.
But we do nick them on the way back.
It's certainly a better idea than what Labour are proposing, where they would have let those two jihadis, the so-called Beatles, come back to our country and they'd have probably walked free. We've already got 700 back who we can't keep a track on. I think it's a great idea, and I think the majority of patriotic Brits would agree with me.
But we have caught those, haven't we? And those have already experienced the current terror legislation laws. What's the matter with what's wrong at the moment with how we deal those who are found guilty?
Because it's too weak, isn't it? It's too soft. You say that over half of them are going to be released because their sentences are nearly finished. That's the problem. The other problem, of course, is that these two who the Americans want to take back, the British Parliament spent all day yesterday discussing their human rights. Well, one, I would say they've got no rights, and secondly, they're hardly human. These people were chopping off, beheading people in the desert. Did people not recall this? I think I can't wait till America get hold of them, find them guilty, and plug in old Sparky. Human rights for terrorists, don't make me laugh.
Well, Schweb, you are a human rights lawyer. Do these people have any rights at all?
I mean, obviously they do. I mean, I think that's the concept of human rights, isn't it? All humans have them. If you're human, you have them, regardless of any rhetoric about, these people aren't human. Of course they are. Obviously they are, they deserve fundamental human rights. The whole point of human rights is the very, very basic fundamental human rights that everyone has, and we would all like to have at all times.
But what about a terrorist who's been found guilty, put in prison, and now we're seeing 80 of them could be released this year? How can we be sure they haven't rehabilitated and they're not a danger to us?
Well, two things. I mean, firstly, in terms of the minimum term of imprisonment that they would have served, that was up to a judge. In terms of the evidence presented, in terms of the prosecution brought the offences at the time, it would have been the proportionate lawful sentence that was passed. Secondly, the fact that they're coming up for potential parole or release means that the minimum part of the sentence they're supposed to serve will be up next year, at the end of this year. But even then, it is up to the parole board, an independent board, to make sure they are actually no longer a danger to the community.
John, they make brilliant decisions, don't they? Shall we talk about John Warboys, the taxi driver, a multiple rapist, not obviously a terrorist? It's just ludicrous, this. It's human rights. I wonder whether Sweb can tell me about the human rights of Mr. Foley as he had his head chopped off. Or how about Alan Henning, the taxi driver, who was only taking relief into Syria, and for his trip there he ended up being beheaded as well. What human rights did they have, Sweb?
No, well, obviously they had human rights, and that's the fact. And that's the reason why we say people who took their lives away and breached their human rights should be brought to justice. But they should be brought to justice according to British traditions, according to the rule of law, given a fair trial, according to the laws that were in place when those crimes were committed.
Sure.
We can't we can't bring new laws, we can't make new laws every time someone commits a crime and then say, this is a particular person we want to really punish, and so we want to make stricter laws to punish them.
Okay. John?
Okay, so do you think then, if the two Beatles, as they're euphemistically defined, if they're found guilty in a court of law in the United States and sentenced to the death penalty, that's okay then, isn't it? We shouldn't interfere, by your logic.
I mean, well, there's quite a few. That's a separate topic, a very long discussion. The whole point is one point
it's
there.
It's the same discussion.
No, the point there was that those were British citizens, and once we realised they had committed criminal offences, we actually revoked the British nationality.
Okay.
So once they commit crimes, they're no longer our responsibility.
John,
they should be brought to the UK, prosecuted here, and punished according to the law we have here. We don't have the death penalty.
John, let me just ask you a question. It's very subjective to describe somebody who's a traitor, isn't it? And here we are hearing an MEP talking about those who support Remain, those who are pro-EU are traitors. Now, this is going crazy. So this is exactly how this law could be misinterpreted.
Bill, you're being hysterical. I made the same joke on Twitter today. I basically said, well, if we're having a new law of treason, the first person we should have in the dock is Theresa May, because she's betrayed the British public over Brexit.
Well, John says that's a joke. That was in fact
he was making
a Telegraph headline.
It was a joke.
Is
But I
Theresa
tell
May
you
guilty of
something,
treason?
we
The
have
Telegraph
been
was not
betrayed.
joking.
I haven't finished.
The
We have
Telegraph
been
was not
betrayed by
joking.
Theresa May, and I would put her
When
in the
we had
dock.
High Court
And the
judges
rest
on the
of the
front page of
miserable
the Daily
idiots
Mail
who are
with the
trying to
headline, "Enemies
deny
of the
the
people,"
democratic rights
that was
of
not
the
a joke.
British people.
Okay, let's just one quick point, and John did make it earlier. We are possibly going to be sending 2 suspects to be tried in the United States because there is a concern that our British laws aren't tough enough. Shweb, what do you make of that?
I mean, I just think they should be brought here. The laws that were in place at the time when they committed those crimes, they were British citizens. We can't just wash our hands of them. We can't absolve ourselves of our responsibility every time a British person commits a crime, take away his passport, he's no longer British, and it's someone else's problem. They were born in the UK, bred in the UK, they became terrorists in the UK. If they go and commit crimes, try them, prosecute them according to British law, and we need to face up to our responsibilities. They're not the US's problem.
One final reaction from John.
We haven't really got a chance, though, have we? Because the new director of public prosecutions, he's a man who believes, not like Cameron in hugging a hoodie, he wants to hug a jihadist. He doesn't believe jihadists should be jailed at all. He's on the record saying that. He believes they should be given a safe space so they can be rehabilitated. He's completely out of tune with the British public, just like your guest, Sweb, and just like our judiciary at the moment and our politicians, spending all day worrying about the human rights of 2 animals, and I'm now insulting animals, who slaughtered people in the hot sun in the desert. It's ludicrous. The British public want tough sentencing. In fact, the British public would like the death sentence brought back in this country for terrorist atrocities. We don't want to hug a jihadist, Sweb. We want them executed.
Right,
and the 700 who have come back to this country, if they commit a terrorist atrocity, the blood is on the hands of Theresa May and the judiciary.